to move into, the reason I bring this up is that because I do so many live demonstrations and I talk to so many accountants, and they either ask me directly or they think it in their head and go off and do their own research. And that in their head is basically this: Microsoft Power BI is a standalone product that when you go to their website, it says $13.70 a month for a Power BI Pro account. Why do we need Etani? Why would we use Etani?
Cool, mate. Really, really good question. And for those listening at home, PT 2.0 actually started with Power BI long before I met Cam. Okay. And, we were on our Power BI journey. We were developing solutions. We were developing connectors. Life was good. Okay. But we didn't know life could be better. And what I mean by that is that a lot of our early clients, we were having to build everything from ground up, client by client. So we spent huge amounts of time building connectors, building other ways to bring data into a data warehouse. And because we are not a Microsoft accredited developer, we would build it in their own environments, which would mean we'd have to build it each time. Now, where we've got something like Etani, and can I say now is that probably 80 to 90% of our clients actually sit in Etani as that base platform, is there were some major key advantages to it. Number one, the cost to implement significantly reduced. The time to execute significantly reduced. The ability for someone else to manage the infrastructure, the security, everything else like that is now something that we don't need to worry about at all. And just the sheer ability to access so many different programs and applications so quickly means that you can spin up a solution in minutes as opposed to weeks or months that we have with where we build a solution without Etani. So look, we still have clients who build things independently, but what we do is that when we are talking to our clients is we give them alternatives. Here's the option with Etani, here's the option without. And I would say that probably only 1 out of 100 then go and say, let's do it without Etani, because quite literally we'd add 2 months to a project and tens of thousands of dollars to be able to do it. So that's why I'd say what Etani is it possible to do it without Etani? Absolutely. But do you want to grow old getting a solution?
I think Etani just helps make it a more of a turnkey solution. It's more of a turnkey solution to the data, accessing the data and connecting to the data. And then obviously the data model that sits over the top. So it provides, I guess, the turnkey abilities there, and it gives you a starting point. It gives you the starting point by the templates. Without the starting point, in fact, the starting points the templates provide a lot of the learning when you're doing that initial training as to what is actually possible here to create for a client.
So the reason why you would use Etani is because Power BI is a product that's designed to connect to multiple data platforms, right? Multiple data sources. So you can connect it to a SQL data source or an OData feed or SharePoint or Microsoft Dynamics, or there's a whole heap of other things. The problem is that not all of those data sources are readily available for Power BI to effectively connect to. So let's take Xero as an example, because it's one that most accountants will be familiar with here in Australia. Xero has this wonderful API. It's incredible. Pretty much, good 90 to 95% of the data sitting in Xero is available to export out through the API. However, Power BI, when it wants to connect to an API, it wants all the data now. It rushes through it. It's kind of like it's sending a fire hose of queries to the Xero API. And Xero, quite rightly, say, well, no, we're not going to take that many queries at once and respond to it, because otherwise our computers get overwhelmed and they have a meltdown and it knocks the entire API offline. So what you actually need is this structured approach to grab the data over a period of time where you're throttling the amount of queries being sent through. You're grabbing the data, you're storing it, and you're only grabbing the updated information, so that you're only grabbing what's new, what's changed, which is a much more efficient process. And then obviously that's how Xero wants people to to approach this when they're doing data mining out of the Xero files. So if you're looking at trying to connect Power BI directly to Xero, it won't happen. And for those who are Googling right now, or Googling after this, and saying, but there's a Xero Microsoft connector sort of thing. Yeah, you don't get the data. You get a few canned reports that are, pretty but useless.
Oh, they don't have that anymore. That's gone.
That's gone. Okay. So even if you saw historical reference to it, then it's not the same, basically. Whereas in the Etani situation, they're connecting to the data, they're grabbing the data, they're storing it in a data warehouse that is readily available for that fire hose approach, so to speak, that Power BI wants to use. So it can grab the data, it can do the whole data set refresh, and then you've got everything that you need to then base your analytics on, to have this ready-made model as well, which is a great model based off of the Xero sort of stuff. It's all there ready to work with. You don't need to do additional work from there. And then there's also a series of, available templates that Etani has that you can use to deploy if what you're looking for is particular ratios or P&Ls or balance sheets or that sort of thing. Then you've got that readily available. So you've got kind of this shortening of the wait. So if you're an accounting firm trying to do that yourself, then you're going to need a coder. You're going to need to run your own data warehouse. And by coder, I mean not someone who's familiar with Power BI, but rather with a different set of code entirely. So not talking DAX, not talking M, we're talking SQL and probably JSON, I'm guessing, and probably some C#. And that's really additional overheads for you. Whereas if you want to kind of quickly get into this space, then it makes a lot more sense to go with a platformer like Etani to grab that data. And then you've also got it readily available for other data sources. So I've been talking Xero, but then there's, how many other integrations are there available at the moment? There's 40, 50?
Yeah, 30 or 40 now, yeah.
30 or 40. So 30, 40 other commonly used platforms within the Xero ecosystem, or the MyOB ecosystem where it's applicable as well, that you've got straight away, as opposed to having to employ someone to build each and every API connection, to store it in your own data warehouse, to then build analytics off. So there's this huge chunk of work that Etani is doing that means you don't have to do that, or you don't need to invest in those skill sets.
It's almost
So
like your example of a small business owner. Rather than using an accountant, they hire an accountant. Why would you hire an accountant as a small business owner? You get the accountant to do that job for you.
That's an excellent analogy, as in you could hire an in-house accountant, or you can hire an accountant instead. And that's how most of the people watching this video will probably be making money, is because they're the people who are being hired instead of an employee going into the business. So it makes a lot more sense to leverage off what's already available. And for us, that's what we did. Our main kicker for engaging with Etani was a connection to a data source called Simpro, which was so hard to find anyone who could do it, and do it in a credible way as well, as in the data made sense, as opposed to you trying to reconcile back to a second Simpro and a report. It just didn't make sense whatsoever from other providers that we tried. So that was our kind of kicker, and then we've moved on to other data sources from there because they've been incredibly useful for us.